Hey guys, it's Chris and welcome to the first Game of Thrones sequel video. That's right, I'm a little bit late to this. I know this story broke last night, but there is apparently an HBO show in development, I'm using air quotes there because we'll get into it here in a minute, of the first Jon Snow sequel series in development apparently again at HBO, which apparently Kit Harington is supposedly attached to, which that's an odd word. But apparently that means he would be down to play Jon Snow again if this actually came to fruition. So I wanted to talk about this last night. A lot of people did videos on it already, but I was waiting to hear back from a source of mine, and I'll share that with you guys in just a second because I'm doubting this is actually going to happen, but let's get into why. But first, let's jump over here to the article itself and talk about what we see here, and then talk about some potential reasons why this may not actually happen or may... I guess like you could say development's a kind of a strong word. So here's the article originally. This is by James Hibbard. We'll talk about him in just a second. But Game of Thrones, Jon Snow sequel series in development at HBO exclusive, so he always has the exclusive. The subtitle here, Kit Harington is attached to reprise his fan favorite role in the first potential Thrones project to take place after the events of the original series. And then it goes on to say here in the article, early development into its first sequel to its blockbuster fantasy drama live-action spin-off series, The Hollywood Reporter has learned. Now, there's no more information on who they learned it from, any sources, anything like that. I understand that's pretty typical. Just saying. Kit Harington is attached to reprise the role should a series move forward. So essentially so far, the article just talks about what's happened in Season 8. Let's see here. He's talking about, here what Kit's appearing in the MCU, all that good stuff as well. And then finally here in this article, perhaps most boldly from the creative standpoint, the project went up in Thrones finale. In theory, the project opened doors for other surviving characters from the Thrones universe to appear, such as Arya Stark, Macy Williams, Sansa Stark, Sophie Turner, and Bran of Tarth, Gwendolyn Christie, etc., etc., etc. Take this with a grain of salt right now, and we'll get to a couple reasons why. What I do know for sure is House of the Dragon will be starting here in just a couple of months. And a lot of you watching the recent videos are not subscribed, so do me a huge favor, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss anything. We'll start the live streams on Sundays back up. We actually just did one Wednesday night after the Obi-Wan Kenobi Series 5 show aired. And of course, we'll start the Sunday night live streams as we lead up to House of the Dragon and continue our post-game shows as well when House of the Dragon finally airs August the 21st. So let's continue here. I want to mention really quickly, talked to Dragon Demands last night. He's already done a video and I'll leave his link in the description below as well, calling basically bullshit on this. All right, so let's jump over here and talk about why this could be bullshit. And I don't know if he actually knows that or if it's just mistaken or whatever, but about a year ago, he announced in a different publication, James Hibbard did, that Robert's Rebellion would be a prequel. It was in development, all that good stuff. Turns out he was wrong. So if we jump over here to Winter is Coming, this is from a year ago as well. Game of Thrones, there never was a Robert's Rebellion prequel series. So they ended up kind of calling bullshit. And here's what basically he has to say. I won't go over too much into this. Hibbard has long had his finger on the pulse of Game of Thrones. He broke lots of exclusives over the years, many of them cataloged in his excellent book, Fire Cannot Kill a Dragon. This is the book he wrote about a year ago or so that kind of chronicles the behind the scenes, since he spent a lot of time on the Game of Thrones set and all that stuff as well. And he was essentially really close to Dan and Dave and kind of ran cover for him on a lot of stuff as well in that book, from my understanding. So it continues here. He broke the news that HBO was considering making a prequel about Robert's Rebellion, the war that put Robert Baratheon on the Iron Throne. It was also his first report there was a Broadway play in the works about attorney at Harrenhal at a key event that led into Robert's Rebellion. And to continue here, after it turned out not to be true, as it ends up, these two are actually the same project. The Robert's Rebellion project I teased turned out to be a Broadway show in development that I had recently reported. So basically, he had reported the same thing. Robert's Rebellion is in development, and it ended up being just a Broadway show because he had heard something basically having to do with Robert's Rebellion. So as you can see, he's been wrong before. He's reported on something before that was supposed to be a TV show, ended up being kind of a Broadway play. And if you go back to the original article here, Kit Harington is attached to reprise his fan favorite role. What does it actually mean, Kit Harington attached? I mean, do they have just a conversation? What does in development actually mean? It could mean just a conversation in a meeting about, could we do Jon Snow? What do you think Kit would come back? And then they say, okay, well, let's ask him just in case before we even get into it. Would you be willing to come back? Maybe he says yes. But the thing is, at the bottom of this article where he announced this, HBO and Harington's representatives had no comment. There could be many reasons why they're not commenting, either because it's not true or they didn't get the message, whatever it may be. The other thing is George R. R. Martin has not said a word, and now that's not necessarily unusual, to be fair. He has in the past many times said something after the fact, after something was announced, and then he comes in. But it brings into question some legal issues as well I want to talk about really quickly. But first, jump over here to Reddit. This is the Free Folk Reddit site here. And this is where, again, Dragon Demands has posted this on the Game of Thrones wiki. Game of Thrones wiki refuses to dignify James Hibbard's claims of an alleged Jon Snow sequel project. Basically, his thing here, he posted on the wiki itself. I went and checked this out as well. So he writes pretty strong words here on the Game of Thrones wiki. James Hibbard is a corporate shill and was Benioff's mouthpiece for years. He did not only lie to fans for Benioff. Now that Benioff isn't in charge, he's out of the loop and not privy to insider information anymore. Recall how back in 2021 of January, he claimed that Robert's Rebellion live-action prequel was in development, only for it to turn out to be completely false. He's a crony trying to be relevant again. There is no evidence, no third-party confirmation of Jon Snow's sequel project. HBO, Martin, Harrington have said nothing. Hibbard has been disastrously wrong before. He's Benioff's carnival barker who now finds himself without real insider information and desperately trying to be relevant. Until we get more information, the wiki would not report on this rumor in any capacity whatsoever, no discussion. But it does say on this article right here on Deadline, Game of Thrones Jon Snow series eyed by HBO. That title has changed, I believe. I think that said something different. It does say here, as HBO is preparing to launch Game of Thrones prequel series, the network has also explored potential sequels centered around one of the original series' most recognizable characters, Kit Harington's Jon Snow. Deadline has confirmed. The project is still in exploratory stages, sources said. So what does that mean? Deadline has confirmed that it's in exploratory stages. So what does that mean again? Is that just basically saying, you know, we are talking about it, we're just sitting around a table having discussions? You know, does it mean that they've reached out to Kit Harington himself, or they already have some writers in there possibly writing a pilot episode? I don't know. It could be in a lot of things. So at this point, I don't really believe it's going to be a thing. I believe it's probably just that, probably just some discussions. And one last thing I want to show you guys, and I'll throw it up on the screen as well, is I reached out to my source, and I do have a source that's been involved with Game of Thrones from the get-go, from season 1 all the way through season 8. I wanted to know if he had heard anything, whether he could confirm anything, whatever, or maybe perhaps knows somebody who does. And he did respond to me, and that's why I waited to do this video. And here's his exact quote. I won't give out any information here, obviously, but here's his exact quote replying to me when I asked him about, has he heard about this series, or knows anybody that does or whatever. I've heard nothing of the sort. I'm pretty well connected and have heard nothing myself. So there you go. There's just, take it for what it is. Doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to happen, but it certainly doesn't mean it is going to happen. But what would this show be about? I mean, honestly, let's think about it. If it does go forward and becomes an actual sequel, first of all, there's potential legal issues. We don't know how this works as far as when George R. R. Martin sold them the rights to A Song of Ice and Fire. Song of Ice and Fire ended in season 8, and then, they potentially will end in the books with A Dream of Spring, which, again, we're never going to get. He did give the main ending plot points to the main characters, to Dan and Dave from HBO. I've been saying that for years. So we did get the general ending in Game of Thrones. Obviously, it's not going to include all the details and the side characters, etc. But would he allow that? Is that even possible legally for them to take these characters and write essentially what is fan fiction after the series ends? So if it ends the same in the books, where Dany goes crazy and she's dead, and Jon Snow goes beyond the wall and lives in true freedom without any kings and queens and all that stuff, that's something George R. R. Martin has written. There is no source material for that, so this will be completely made up. Now, if he would be involved, I'm totally fine with that, obviously, because he would be able to say, look, this is what I want him to do. But he's also said in the past there would never be any sequels. So again, he's changed his mind on other things. I'm not saying that makes it completely out of the question. But just throwing that out there because he has said that before. So there's potential legal issues there. Do they have the rights? And I personally don't know. I'm just kind of throwing out these questions in general for conversation. Do they have the legal rights to take these characters and make them, basically exist in a made-up scenario or stories after the major story of A Song of Ice and Fire, since that's what he sold them? So then the last thing really quickly before we get out of here, this is already too long. What could this show possibly be about? Jon Snow went beyond the wall. He's with Tormund. Would it be cool to see Jon again hanging out with Tormund or whatever? Sure, but they can't just have him up north of the wall. There's no White Walker threat. There's no reason for a Night's Watch. There's no reason for a wall. I can't see it where he's just up north of the wall and it's always in the snow, although the snow is going to melt some, obviously. With the White Walkers gone, there would be more spring there. We saw the little hint of a dream of spring where the flower was popping through the snow and all that. So there wouldn't necessarily be an all snowy area all the time, depending on how far north they went. But it would be essentially, they'd have to make up some kind of, essentially some kind of bad guy, some kind of threat to somebody or something. They could have him come back to Westeros, but I don't think they can do this with just Jon Snow alone. I think they would have to bring back Sansa in the north. I mean, he'd have to visit home, bring back Arya perhaps. Maybe she discovers what's west of Westeros, which has already been done by Alyssa Foreman. I've said that many times. I don't know why that was a big plot point. She's just going to run into Essos at some point and just be back over there where she was anyway. But that could be a potential idea, bring her back. You could have a reunion with Sam Tarly, his best friend, and all that kind of stuff. So there's things they could do, but I don't think they could do it without essentially upending Game of Thrones. And I'm actually fine with that. If they were going to do this show and it had some kind of retcon ideas in it, at least, where Jon comes back, he's Aegon, he's recognized as Aegon, he's free to hang out in the Seven Kingdoms, whatever it may be. He's maybe we learned that Dany was resurrected by Kinvara, an idea that everybody wanted to see happen. Obviously, if they did this as a Game of Thrones Season 9, where they could fix some of this shit, I'm totally down for it. But as for a show where it's just Jon north of the wall, and it's just kind of new characters, and he plays, King Beyond the Wall, or their leader, or whatever it may be, I just don't know how interesting that would be. I mean, do I like Jon Snow? Absolutely. I think he's an awesome character. It was all about him and Dany concurrently, but once he left, and there's no more threats as far as White Walkers or whatever to the realm, I don't think he would just go back and rejoin the realms of men and be under that whole system again, although his brother technically is king. So anyway, guys, I will leave it there. I just will say just kind of my final thoughts. I don't think this is going to happen, at least at this point. But again, to be fair, he did report it. He reported it with Kit Harington's name attached to it. So we'll see in the next, I don't know, a few weeks, few months, whatever it may be, if there's any word from George R. R. Martin himself, if we hear anything from Kit Harington himself or whatever. But again, I think right now, this is probably just an idea floating around a meeting, just kind of flying around the round table over there at HBO about possibly trying to, revive the actual series as opposed to prequels, and maybe do a little bit of retcon and catching up to some of the fan favorite characters. But again, I don't think they can do this with just him alone. There's too many other characters that you would have to see to make people remotely interested in this. It would have to do some kind of retcon or fix to Game of Thrones Season 8. So anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. I know this is a hot topic right now. I know there's a lot of people saying, I don't give a shit about it. I don't want it. Obviously, that was his big thing. I've seen that meme already. And there's other people that are super excited about it because they want anything Game of Thrones. I understand both sides completely. So just trying to give you my opinion about what I think this potentially is or could be. But as of right now, I will just say that I don't think this will likely happen. We don't know how far, in development means. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. As usual, thank you for all the support, especially you guys on Patreon. And a huge shout out to my executive Patreon SmokeScreen producers. And, of course, if you dig what I do here, please help us reach 100,000 subscribers. Hit that subscribe button as not to miss anything. We'll definitely be covering House of the Dragon and the other prequels that are coming out for sure, like Dunk and Egg, all that good stuff as well. So, again, thank you for your time. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.